Recruitmentary, empowering your employment. Podcast episode series part 2.
So for me, it was some student exchange in high school, and then another couple of short exchanges in university, then an experience living and working as an English teacher in South Korea. I did my master's in Switzerland at a school there in international relations, and then I went and got a job in Manila in the Philippines. Lived and worked there for 4 years, where I met my wife, and just slowly I was getting more comfortable working and living in different different countries and different environments. But if you chuck me into Manila, not having those previous experiences, I really would have struggled.
I can understand that, but it sounds like, man, you played risk as a kid and said, you know what, I'm going to make this a reality. I'm going to travel all these places. You bought yourself a map, and then I'm going to school here.
Yeah.
Wife here. I'm going to work here, teach English here. I'm going to go to school there. I'm going to do that. And it's just like, you've been like all over the place, which is cool. I mean, I'm making light of it, but in all seriousness.
Well, it all lines up now. But at the time, it was just, I just took whatever opportunities I had, right? For example, there was an exchange program that we had at my school to spend a bit of time in France, a couple of months. Mm-hmm. And nobody applied that year. And I was like nobody's applied. I'm going to apply, right? Mm-hmm. And so I did, and I went, and so it just slowly built from there. But and throughout, when you spend a bit of time in some of these places, you get an opportunity to travel. So when I went to France, just a few years out of the collapse of the Iron Curtain and the Berlin Wall, I was able to go to East Berlin when it was still East Berlin, and still see parts of the Berlin Wall, and go to Prague just a few years after, as I said, the fall of the Iron Curtain, and just fascinating stuff. You still needed a visa to go to Prague, to go to it was Czechoslovakia at the time. It wasn't the Czech Republic. And it was just because I managed to go on this exchange where I got a little bit of money as an intern, did this thing in France. And again, I didn't grow up rich. I just took advantage of different opportunities I had, because I really wanted to see the world, and I wanted to find ways in which I could make that happen. And that became very comfortable, moving around from place to place and trying to adapt to different cultures.
Well, now that you've had that foothold in the experiences with so many different areas, I would imagine so, it allows your cultural appetite, if you will, to be much more fine-tuned compared to, stepping into the thicket of things like you did in Korea and going, oh no, this is good, I'm used to this. It's not, you're a little more sensitive to those areas. But you touched on a couple of things, though, as far as for those internships, especially in France. When you were either in university or college, depending on where listeners are referring to their schools, but in general, did you have a lot of different opportunities for internships? And if so, where did you find the most opportunity? What countries, or while you were in school, was there maybe certain resources that had more internships than others that you might recommend somebody listening to now?
It was a bit of luck, to be honest. It was only because my school had these arrangements with this other school in France. That was kind of it. Most universities will have something. It wasn't very well advertised necessarily, so you'd have to dig around a little bit. But they might, I'm sure anybody who's a student would be able to identify that. Yeah, that does probably something there that you could do, and you don't need to go to an Ivy League school or anything. I'm sure that most major universities or colleges in the US or North America have got something. In Canada, obviously, with having being a francophone and an anglophone country, there are exchanges with France more than perhaps other for strategic reasons than other parts of the world. But I'm sure there's something out there in many places. And if not, if you can't find anything, then I would, and you really want to spend some time elsewhere, I check out just becoming a teacher of English as a second language, so that you can actually get a job as a teacher, as an English teacher. And in most cases, if you've got that qualification, and it's not that difficult. And at the time when I moved to South Korea, you didn't even need that. You just needed a university degree from a Canadian or an American university, and then you can get a visa to live and work in that country, in Korea in my case. But you can get a visa to live and work in a place. See, visas are a thing. Visas are a bit of a problem, because you can't just show up with your bags and just start looking for work.
Right.
You need to you need to figure out what your rights are to live and work somewhere. And actually, you can get in trouble if you work somewhere, obviously without a permit. So I know loads of English teachers, well, not loads, but some in Korea who did work on the side, private tutoring, who got found out and got deported. So you want to be careful. You don't want to run foul of the local laws. But teaching English is a great way to get some international experience. I'd start there. And as I said, you might have an interest in a certain country or region. So I'd have a look. Most embassies or websites might have some resources. I don't know what's out there in terms of the equivalent of this book that I had. I'm sure you could take that and multiply it 100 times and you find loads of interesting resources. Again, don't be afraid to experiment. Go for a certain period of time, and if you don't like it for whatever reason, then you can try something else and try another part of the world, or maybe it might be your situation. It might be not the country, and this is where can be a bit challenging. It might not be if something doesn't work out, it might not be the country. It might just be the employment situation that you managed to land yourself in wasn't the greatest thing for you, or maybe the part of the world where it was located might not suit your needs or whatever. But do your homework, and there's nothing wrong, particularly when you're young. When you're young, I would say travel, because it's harder to do when you're older. One of the things, I've been fortunate to have been able to continue to travel, both for my work, but also through different opportunities I had. It's harder when you have a family because you need to consider what your family's doing. You need to consider schools. You need to consider pets, those kinds of things. But even then, there are opportunities. If you work for a company and there's an international assignment or opening that might be available to you, do give it some serious thought. If you're young, take advantage. Take advantage to do a bit of travel. It's so important. It's so fulfilling. Can't recommend it enough.
Now, when people are looking at you for those potential opportunities, internships, sponsorships, things of that nature, is there maybe a way that you can reach out to them that they may take you for serious consideration if you are interested, but you're not sure how to move forward with your career? Like, for example, I'm sure with your constant moving around, your resume didn't really add up to specifically a career path direct.
Yeah, I had to make up my own career path in many respects, Michael. Some of that was a bit of luck, being in the right place at the right time, different opportunities opening up at the right sort of time.
Have your own recruiter or candidate story that you'd like to share with us? If you're listening on YouTube, comment below. Otherwise, feel free to email your experience to ask@recruitimentary.com. You can find our full conversation of this episode on YouTube at youtube.com/recruitimentary. Thanks for checking out this episode, and feel free to like, subscribe, and share the content. A Mike Tech Studios production.